Hello YouTube back with another question and answers. I think I'm on to part 4 now. Already gone beyond what I thought it was going to be, but however. I enjoyed the question, so why rush it? So last time I was answering some questions from Retro Gamer Mickey, and I kind of rushed through them and didn't do the best job answering, I felt. So I'll quickly kind of go over those again and move on, because he asked a few more questions. So I'll kind of bundle them all together. And pot noodles or super noodles? I was actually thinking of coca noodles, so I guess I'll say neither. And he said, what's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you? I could never think of those things, but as soon as I come off camera, my wife said to me, well, what about that time you sat down on the train and you managed to rip your trousers open with the seat, the seat rest. I kind of caught my pocket got caught by seat rest, and just tear went down, my trousers. And I was going into work at the time, which wasn't good at all. What I ended up having to do was, this was very early in the morning, going between various shops looking for, I can't remember what it was, they looking for needle and thread, or I ended up getting safety pins and having to, safety pin from the inside, safety pin to hold the trouser all the way down, so that you couldn't see. I did actually, surprisingly, did a fairly good job on it. Perhaps I've got another profession in the wings should I need it. But yeah, I was glad to get home that day, that was for sure. So that was another embarrassing incident. But Retro Gamer Mickey also asked another 3 questions, and he said, what's your favourite TV show, US and UK? Again, another one of these, whenever I think of the favourite questions, they're always what comes to mind. So at the moment, I'm going to say my favourite show is Frasier. Obviously that would be the US one, but it's probably for both. I find myself going back to it time and time again, and yeah, just smart comedy that I think ages really, really well. Better than most comedies do. UK, I actually find that one a lot harder because I like a lot of UK shows, but whereas I enjoy lots of them, I don't find quite as many that to me stand out. So for now, I'm going to go with, I guess, maybe Only Fools and Horses, because it's a classic and it does age very well itself. Part of me is tempted to say Red Dwarf, because I really, really enjoyed that show. The earlier stuff, not the newer stuff so much. But I'm not 100% sure it ages quite as well. Some of the shows are really good, but not all of them. So yeah, I guess I'll go with those. Top 3 films. It's actually surprisingly easy, at least 2 of them. Number 1 film, easy answer, The Shawshank Redemption. Absolutely superb. It's an exercise in how, if you take something that's well written, has compelling characters, a compelling narrative, and then you have it acted well and directed well, you end up with, a truly compelling piece of film without having to have massive explosions and CGI everywhere and all this nonsense. All it boiled down to was the fact that it was a good story with good characters, and that's what you really need. Let me see, 2 more though. I'm forgetting something, but in its place I'm going to say Back to the Future. As I've kind of gotten older, I actually appreciate that movie more and more. It just, again, it seems to be the theme for tonight. It ages so well. I'm talking about the first Back to the Future, but the trilogy is really good as a whole. One of the strongest trilogies I can think of. It's just so clever, such a unique take on the whole time traveling thing, and despite being what could be seen as a kids movie, there's some fairly adult content in it, and to a certain degree there's some fairly sick content in it. But yeah, again, another example of well written. The whole series is really well thought out, and the different kind of DeLoreans and the different time frames and all this sort of stuff there's just so much that can go wrong when you do a time travel plot. But Bob Gale just really nailed, that one, and of course brilliantly directed as well. And so you couldn't have cast a better Doc and a better Marty. They just had such chemistry on screen, which is why I don't think they should ever remake it or anything like that, because I don't think, even if you got the other elements, it'd be damn hard to capture the same chemistry between the lead actors. So yeah, Back to the Future, that'd be another one of my top three. And then, perhaps a guilty pleasure, but Rocky. I absolutely love the Rocky movies. Particularly, I mean, the first one was an Oscar winner. It is a great movie. I enjoy them all, but the first one is definitely great, and it just reminds me of the whole. It's amazing what you can do when you try and push yourself and believe that you can go the distance, as it were, and it's just a great morality tale, I suppose. And it's one of those films that, although it's about a topic, sport, boxing, and all that, it really isn't. It's actually all about the character again. It's so even people who aren't necessarily, and I've found it happen several times, where people who aren't necessarily that into the context actually enjoy the movie because it's a good movie. So yeah, that's my number three. I guess things like Star Wars and The Matrix would probably be pushing, for if we were to make it a top five. Either The Empire Strikes Back or Jedi. I'm not too sure. I kind of swapped between the two of them. And the first Matrix is an absolutely stellar movie. Seen that in the cinema and mind blowing type of thing. So yeah, extended that answer to 5. Aren't you lucky? So number 3 then. If you could sit down to dinner with any 3 people, alive or dead, and ask them questions, who would it be? That's Jesus. Another top 3. My God, this is like 3 top 3 Tuesdays in one. God, I haven't a clue on this one. I guess, being from a science background, I'd have to say science people. I mean, Charles Babbage, Alan Turing, and perhaps Isaac Newton kind of spring to mind. Maybe people say, oh geez, that's very dry. And then other people that spring to mind would be kind of like some of game developers. I mean, Miyamoto, if I had a translator, so maybe that counts as 2 people. Although I've spoken to game developers before, Steve White, Warren Davis, Bob Smith, people, and they're really nice. So yeah, that'd be a fun conversation. So any of those and all of those. Who said it has to be 3? Let's make it more than 3 again. So anyway, a bit of move on, because that's kind of a bumper edition of questions from Mr. Gamer Mickey. And beforehand, I'm pretty sure I skipped over someone, so let's go back to benjmanx, I think. I'm not too sure about that, so if I got your name wrong, apologies. And he asks, what was your first favourite gaming experience when you were a kid that really got you into gaming? And he goes on to say, for him it was Wonder Boy in Monsterland. It was first time in 1988 when he played it. Once I played it, I would play the game in my head even afterwards, and draw the levels. And the funny thing is, actually, he said, I would play the game in my head while sitting in church and draw the levels on paper. I was obsessed from there on. I would have to say that it would be Sonic 1 on a Master System. I could actually play that in my head, and I did it in church at one point too. I could, close my mind and I can imagine it. And I obviously drew a lot of Sonic when I was younger too, so it's got to be Sonic 1 on Master System. I've played a few other games before, but by God, that was the one that kind of set things in stone. What do you do for work? I think I touched upon this in the last, in part 3, but I'm a software engineer, so programming, I guess you'd say, or software development, so many terms to describe it. Before that, I had been a scientific researcher, and yeah, kind of geeky stuff, so I guess it makes sense. And to be honest, a lot of it actually all stemmed from video gaming, because I was interested in video gaming and how that came about. You're kind of thinking naturally, well, wouldn't it be great to make those as a profession? And yes and no, there's plus and cons to that. But that did lead me into research, and well, led me into my undergraduate course of computer science, and then led me into a postgrad, which was related to gaming, and then led me into your more typical mundane job. And then finally, favorite cartoon show when you were a kid. Okay, cartoon show. I'm not too sure if this counts because it's not actually a cartoon show, but I'm going to say Nightmare because that's the one that stuck in my mind the most. It was a children's TV show, which is kind of where I'm linking it in, and it was kind of like, again, video gaming-esque related. You were this kind of guy, dungeon. You had a helmet on your head, and you were guided around this dungeon, this virtual reality style dungeon. It wasn't VR; it was actually chroma key most of the time. And you had these other people who were acting as your eyes, and they would direct you. And I loved that show so much. I mean, it's amazing how the phrase "your other left" can instill so much panic into you, even to this day. Most of my friends that I grew up with, we all watched that show and just absolutely adored it. Yeah, someday I'm going to actually maybe do a video on that, I think. Yeah, it sounds like a plan. But if we were to go cartoon, jeez, probably when I was younger I would have watched a lot of the Turtles. I don't, honestly. They haven't stuck with me as I've grown up. In fact, now I kind of find them a little silly for whatever reason. I wouldn't say, oh, you're silly for liking them or anything, but I just don't quite get what I was drawn to. Which, if I look at something like Transformers, which I was also a fan of, I can still see what I liked. But I find it a little harder to see what I liked about the Turtles. I mean, they can still be actually funny, some of the cartoons, but I don't know. I guess I could cheat on that one and say The Simpsons, because I watched that when I was younger too, and that's still on, and that's still great. So, yeah. Thanks for the questions there, benjmanx. Hopefully I didn't butcher your name again. Moving on, we have... Is it kingsconsoles? And he asked one question, and he says, are there any games in your collection that you really hate, but you could not ever bring yourself to sell? Simple answer, no. I don't call it obsessive compulsive, I don't know what it is, but I cannot sell games. Even duplicates I struggle to sell. I'm not as bad as I used to be, but yeah, I guess I impart a lot of emotion, into my games, so that they're not just things; they actually have a personal connection to me. If I was to pick up something, even a game I've never played, like say this one here, Last Spectre, that brings back memories because I know where I was when I got it. I was in New York, and I remember being in the Nintendo World Store, and I think back to the Nintendo World Store. So it actually. It's like an emotional connection to the past, even though I've never played the game. Now, if I've played the game and enjoyed the game, like say Sonic 1, that has even bigger impact. But for that reason, I actually struggle to sell games. Even ones that I dislike, and I have stories about games that I dislike that I end up kind of, liking nearly because I dislike them, strange as it sounds. And I just like to collect them. I like to view a collection and keep things, I guess, for posterity as much as anything. I always imagined them when I was younger. Well, wouldn't it be great, and so on. But it is strange at the same stage. I understand it is strange to just hoard these games you don't even like. Yeah, that is a bit odd, really. So the answer is no. Strange that way. So scrolling on, another one question, and it's BHS Boy 1. It says, what was it that got you started collecting in collecting games? Funny enough, kind of related question there. Nothing particularly got me, there was no kind of divine spark, I'm going to collect now. And all of a sudden I'm going to just, get everything. It was more just the way it always was. As I kind of just mentioned in the previous question, I couldn't let go of games. I've only ever sold 3 games out of my collection. And that was to part fund an N64. I played Mario 64 at my friend's house properly. I had touched the N64 before, but I didn't hold the controller properly. And playing it properly for the first time was one of the few wow, I can't believe this. I gotta have this system. Probably only the second time that was that kind of, I gotta get it, and definitely the strongest. So that was the only thing that could push me into selling games. I asked my parents for Christmas, and it was basically, if you can contribute X amount to it, we'll get it for you, because it was quite expensive, and I wouldn't have gotten presents that dear for Christmas. So it was a case of, God, I gotta come up with the money, gotta sell off some games. But before then, I would not, like, I'd gone from my Master System to the Mega Drive, and then I went to the Mega Drive and I sold, or to the N64, but I did sell 3 games. I immediately regretted it. And maybe if you were to say what made me a collector, that made me a collector, having to sell those games, because I was like, I'm never selling those games ever again, and I never did. So every single system, N64 to GameCube, GameCube to Wii, Game Boy to Game Boy Advance SP to Game Boy Micro to DS and so on, it was always kept, because not letting that happen again. So I guess if you're looking for a point, it's that. And thanks for the question as well. Actually, I can't remember if I thanked the previous person. What was his name? benjmanx. So thank you both for the questions. And let me see, how many are left? Okay, I think we leave it there then for today, and we'll probably do one more video and kind of grab the last few questions together and finish it off in a final spectacular. Well, let's hope they're spectacular. If not, I'm blaming the people coming up with crappy questions. So we'll see you soon.